Hello, we are here today to welcome Douglass Carmichael, who is one of the members of the International Advisory Board of the Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies at Wawasan Open University. Douglass is an advisor to the Institute for New Economic Thinking, but actually he's a polymath. Wide range of experience. When I met him, I was so impressed. I felt he had to come and give advice to us all. And we are really honored and delighted that he's here today. So Douglass, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And maybe if you can just say a few words about yourself, your own background, and then we'll talk about what the work of the GEOS and the International Advisory Board will be.
Well, I guess I could look at my life as a balance between survival and curiosity. And I kept choosing things that were curious. As a child, I wanted to understand the world, and I heard science did that. So I went off to do science, which was good, but the world that science wanted to understand was not the world that I completely wanted to understand. So I moved through a series of careers from physics to psychology to becoming a psychoanalyst, and then doing consulting, and it's all added together.
Now, you're particularly interested in man's future. My understanding is that you understand, there is this techno optimism that we can solve everything in the world from technology, and that may not be the case, because the danger of this modern age is that humans are treated like robots. And we've lost the humanist touch. But there is an existential threat that you feel that we must address. And so I would like you to share your thoughts about climate change.
Well, climate change is so big, it's hard to get your brain around it, which is what makes it interesting, because it forces you to work collegially and get people from different perspectives. The fact that technology has led us to this is because I think we took opportunities without caution, and we've built a world which is pretty strange, actually. It might have been relatively inevitable given our randy brains and all that, but we certainly have created a kind of mess. And maybe because I grew up in New York City in World War II, and we did air raids at night, we wore helmets, the lights all had to be off, and society was clearly affected. And I was just a little boy, but I could feel it. And I had a sense that things could really go wrong. And I think that stayed with me the whole time. And now to have the opportunity to actually engage directly in a major problem and think it through is wonderful in a certain way, and scary in another way.
Well, the traditional universities really have conventional disciplines. We study medicine, we study mathematics, we study business, right? Accounting, or we're all in silence. But actually, climate change affects us all. A lot of issues. As another member of the International Advisory Board, Dr. Venu Reddy said, demographics is one of the threats, and a lot of it's due to migration. And why do people migrate? Well, a lot of it's due to climate change. If you have a natural disaster in one part of Middle East or North Africa, are you surprised that people migrate northwards towards Europe and changing things? So how would you advise us to think about climate change in the sense of how do we integrate it into every course that we do? So for example, medicine. Very clearly, a lot of the medical problems are really due to public health. And public health issues have everything to do with climate. If you have a water drought, the disease will spread very, very rapidly, not just through the water, but also through the animals or the vegetables that we eat. So, share with us some of your thoughts on how one should integrate climate change as a theme throughout a university and education?
Well, if we start with medicine, where what's happened is the move towards dealing with diseases and medical issues that are expensive rather than widespread, I think we've put ourselves in a weak position. Climate change, I think, will create many, many new medical problems, and probably, I think, I've been thinking of the barefoot doctors, remember them? That with the huge migrations that might happen, we're going to need new kinds of practitioners that are capable of very practical activities. So that's one thing. So it's taking the current field and looking not only where it came from, but looking at where it could go under the impact of climate change. And I think that moves through all the fields. We take history. History is in a way writing scenarios of the past to help us to write scenarios of the future. So I think they keep moving back and forth. My wife is a great reader of novels from the Third World. They have fantastic insights and experience that can help us a lot. I think the arts are going to play a big part. The way, I think there's not a field that will not be touched by climate change. And thinking about climate change needs the integration. An example would be something that I experience all the time, and I was being in conversations where people talk about the economy must grow in order to create the jobs that people need. Down the hall, there's another meeting going on talking about climate change, where they're saying that growth is killing us, we've got to do something about it. And to me, part of the challenge is how do you get those two conversations in the same room, realizing that it's almost a stalemate, and we don't know. But that to me is the challenge, and I think we're good at challenges.
That's very important. The underlying theme that what you're suggesting is that in today's complex problems that comes from multi-dimensions, we need multidisciplinary approaches rather than single discipline. That means, you know, the issues that we face are not just economic, it's not just political, it's not just technology, it's not just sociology. You really need very multidisciplines to make a overall assessment on this issue. And you have identified that, you know, perhaps maybe the unifying theme for all this is to get all the university departments to try and teach the unifying theme for all the students. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. I mean, if you look at the medieval monastery, which was a kind of university, people's discussion and learning was about the spirit of humanity. We might not completely agree with the way they did it, but it was a pretty holistic enterprise. It broke down under the pressures of the success of early industry. When Leonardo da Vinci was doing paintings, he was also doing bronze sculpture. And the bronzes were being cast with new technologies, which led people to detour away from art into the technologies to figure out what was happening. My view is, hey, the detour is great, but it's over. Let's come back to the arts as an integrated whole.
Yeah,
It's like I'll say it as a sentence, that science is a phase in the history of art.
Yeah, we really, you know, scientists think they can solve all the problems, but they really realize that it's so, and science turns to be, or classical science used to be deterministic. That means they appear to have solutions.
I don't think scientists, for the most part, are trying to solve problems. I think they're trying to have careers.
That's a very, very good point. Very, very good point. But coming back to this multidisciplinary approach, you know, in the old days, Dr. Xiuman Fai, who was also a member of the International Advisory Board, mentioned how today, in the cardiac field, it used to be the cardiac physician or the surgeon makes all the decisions. You know, whether you operate or whether you put a stent or whether you apply medicine. And today, you know, before every decision is taken, you have a multidisciplinary approach. You get, a family history, the other fields, whether it really, the heart problem is caused by the liver? Is it caused by, dietary considerations? Is it a psychiatric problem, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I want to go further and say, what's left out of that is the literature of the broken heart, the loving heart, the affectionate heart. And I think that traditional people know that a sad or depressed heart is not good for your health, and it's not good for your heart. When we talk about a heart attack, it's real. Your heart attacks you. And we're not integrating that level of knowledge either.
Yes, that's absolutely true. It is amazing how heart attacks are caused. Well, nobody exactly knows many answers. It's medical, but a lot is emotional. And a happy person, will live much longer. Coming back to the universities, how would you advise an open university such as Wawasa, to think about, what it should do in the theme of the digital disruption, or just simple, disruption?
Well, the disruption, I don't understand the disruption problem that well. I see it, the way in which computerization is responsible for a lot of things it does not take responsibility for. The banking crisis. Obviously, we wouldn't have had it if we didn't have the power of computer. The way the media has kind of taken over but broken the salaries of the top people. And we have a lot of young kids writing the stories, or now we're beginning to get computers writing the stories. These are profound disruptions. And I'm really worried about it because I have a lot of friends who have children, as most of us do, and we see the children more caught up in interacting through the technology than with each other. So that their ability to appreciate another human being has weakened a lot. Things like that I find very puzzling and powerfully distressing.
Well, that's very deep, because what you're trying to say is that the digital disruption, the technology itself becomes an end. People are so engrossed with it that they're not talking to each other.
Well, and we have the interesting thing of scale, like the people who, if we go back 15 years, were optimistic about the internet. And that was not completely misguided. But it turned out, as the internet scaled up, it became like a feeding frenzy of large corporations to figure out how to use it for their own ends. And the whole enterprise gets distorted. And we don't have a social process for preventing that, which is something we've got to work on.
Well, this is exactly the role of the university to use some blue skies thinking and think a little bit long range and just explore.
Well, it ought to be. But for the most part, it is not.
Yes. So
it's a real opportunity. The interesting thing is if you do blue sky thinking, what are the jobs for the graduates of that? So we have to think about both ends, both what it is that we're teaching them, and given that, to help create a world that can find them useful.
Yeah, the meme or the icon that describes the modern age, particularly for an emerging market like Malaysia, is the supply chain. Japan was the first one to engage in the supply chain to supply the manufactured goods for American markets. And then when the crisis hit Japan, they just created the factories, outside Japan, so that the yen doesn't get affected. And then the World Bank began to understand this and said, if you're an emerging market, all you have to do is to plug into the supply chain, the global supply chain, and you'll be okay. So if we think like that, it's like a kind of a car assembly, whereby the school leavers come into the university. It's like a assembly line. Year one you add this information, year two you absorb this information, year three you're taught this information, year four you go out and get a job. And then today the disruption is that information is so fast, is accumulating so fast, that the graduates come out and the employers say, no, that's not the graduate that I want somebody creative.
And there's another big problem, and that is just-in-time supply chain thinking has created very fragile structures that are not capable of flexibly responding to changing conditions.
That's right.
So they're very easy to break. The logic looked really good, but the logic also implied that you create an ideal state that was sustainable, not that there would be continuous changes. And one of the things with global heating, is going to be threats to the existing supply chains, in part through the disruption of transportation, but also through the breakdown of electrical systems. So we need an economy that's building for flexibility and redundancy. The build for redundancy was treated as exactly what you didn't want to do for several generations of business school graduates, and yet it's exactly what we need.
So we have tried to make the institution, like the universities, efficient, and producing efficient students, so that they will go and to become very efficient part of the machinery called employers or corporations or government. And we suddenly discover that efficiency itself is fragile. It doesn't adapt, right? And therefore you need redundancy. So you really need the students to be creative, to not just to learn science, but to learn art.
Yeah, I mean, the thing isn't to be efficient at producing dollars, but to be efficient at producing full human beings.
Yes.
So that it depends upon what you're efficient about, and yet the efficiency people talk as though it's totally clear what you ought to be efficient about, and it's not.
Yeah, I like the line in your book. The GDP has gone up, but the people are unhappy.
Right.
And I think that says it all. So when we want to think about a university, and we want to think about the role of a student in the university, we need to think about happiness. We need to not just think about how the university adapts to a very massive changing environment, but how it engages with the students to be happy, to be resilient, to be adaptable, to respond to change and to think for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that's been lost in the kind of industrialization and systematization that we've had is that it's aimed towards a mass audience for mass consumption. And what we've lost is our ability to understand individual human beings as being different, unique, and interesting. So the social sciences look at people in mass. I like the joke that the sociologists, the question is how many poets are in society. They only found 3, so it doesn't count. I think the future is going to be bringing back the human. I hope it's bringing back and exploring each other, human appreciation of differences. And people have such interesting, complex lives, and we kind of learn to treat people like something you can turn on and off, like a channel.
Well, I think time is more or less up, but I think it's very important, and thank you, Douglas, for sharing with us your wisdom. I think it was the poet T.S. Eliot who says, "Where is the wisdom that we have lost in knowledge?" And I think we as members of society, whether we're a student, whether we're a teacher, whether we're an employer, whether we're in the government, really need to understand that it's not just stuffing knowledge to everyone. It really, human beings, are part of that knowledge pool in this way. We are alive, we create knowledge, and we need to use it wisely.
Yeah. And I don't think it's so much putting it into them as discovering what they know.
That's right. That's right. And that reminds me of what Dr. Vinu, the other International Advisory Panel or member said. He said the traditional way is the teacher imparts knowledge to the student. In an open university, the students are mostly mature. And so therefore, what can we learn from the students? So it's really a mutual learning process. And that's a very, very terrific thought for all of us to have. Thank you very much, Douglas, for sharing, your wisdom and your time with us. We really appreciate that you coming all the way from California to join this and to share your knowledge and
All I had
wisdom.
to do was get on a plane and read a book, and they bring you tea. It's like a little Zen monastery. It was totally fun.
And then we'll think about that, we'll sleep on that, and maybe we'll come up with new ideas.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Yes.